Hey there everybody, welcome back to Tucktuk's Trinkets and Terrain. For this week's video, I went back to Gaslands and I made some gates to use on the game board that I made a few videos ago. If you're unfamiliar, the gates are what's used to sort of denote the course of the death race mode in Gaslands. I tried to make them match as best I could to the board that I had made, using the same sort of materials and elements. I think they turned out pretty good. I made a set of 4, you can see them right here. But I'm going to show you what I did and how I did it, and I hope you enjoy. For the main structures of a lot of my gates, I glued together these I-beams out of chipboard. And then for the various materials and things that I'm going to be using, I've got some various wood bits, this fine mesh, as well as some cross-stitch meshing. And then some corrugated cardboard that I've peeled the paper off of. And then it's a pretty simple process from here on out. I'm just going to use some super glue, and after trimming all of my various materials down to sort of random lengths, basically glue these together. These 3 sets of I-beams are going to be 3 legs of some gates. Just cutting up my different materials and gluing them on fairly randomly, trying to keep the bottom of my I-beams level so that the gates will sit nice and flat. I tend to overdo it with the super glue. I find once it dries, it leaves a nice sort of rust texture, which is great to paint up down the road. I also made 3 sets of sort of legs out of just some dowel rods. Same thing overall, just gluing random bits of material onto those. Now for the sort of cross beam that'll attach the sets of legs, once again I'm using some dowel rods and some I-beam that I had left over. As a general rule of thumb, you want your gates to be about as wide as the long straight, which is that template that you see here. And then again, just more gluing different materials on, making it very mismatched, and like somebody who didn't know what they were doing put these together. I wanted to make the start and the finish gates a little more unique and stand out a bit more. So for the finish, I'm going to glue half of a Halloween skull onto the front here. And the plan is to paint this big corrugated cardboard piece as a checker flag, like the Finnish flag that you see. And the skull just gives it a little bit more interesting detail. And then for the starting gate, I thought it would be cool if I used the Hot Wheels that's sort of been chained up to the gate that I can paint, like start or go on or something down the road. Now you can see in the background there the finished horizontal pieces to the gates. I essentially made some like triangles using the dowel rods and all the various materials that I've been using. Now that I've got all of the pieces put together and ready to go, I'm going to start assembling them. Now, I didn't want the gates to sort of match too much, so I used different legs to make up the gates. And I'm just using hot glue to sort of temporarily tack these together before I can secure them and make them really strong. Again, using the long movement template as a guide to make sure that these are big enough. And then from here, gluing on some sort of cross beams between the pieces to make sure everything is nice and secure. It's not going to fall apart. So here's a couple of the gates all put together with the cross beams. You can see I've also added some chain to sort of bring one more element that ties everything together. And then here is my final gate with the skull and all the cross beams on the back there. And then as far as the starting gate goes, I wasn't super happy with the chains that I had glued on earlier. So I added a few more. Just didn't look like it was secure enough. If a car had been sort of tied up onto one of these gates. So a few more chains going the other way and just gluing those down and make sure they're not going to go anywhere. I think that looks a lot better. I then painted these up. I didn't bother filming this. It's a super simple paint job, just brown and gray for the wood, and then a gunmetal with sort of a rust wash for all the metal. Again, just matching what I had done on my board. But I did want to add a few sort of graffiti-esque details. For one, I wanted to add some arrows on all the bottoms of the gates to denote the direction that the cars need to travel through. And then just sort of painted on some random elements using some brighter colors. Again, these are the same colors that I used on my board, so everything matches and looks like one sort of set of terrain pieces. I then just painted a quick and rough
checkerboard pattern on the final gate here. For all of these, I'm not being too careful with the paint. I'm just kind of splotching it on. Again, like a bunch of amateurs basically made all these and painted them. And then just roughed on a bright green start on the car here for the starting gate. And with that, everything is all finished. This is a great way to really dig deep into your sort of trash piles and just use scraps and leftovers. I really like this sort of ramshackle style, especially for Gaslands, and I think these really came together well. And here is everything on the board itself. Make sure you subscribe and hit the like button if you did enjoy the video. I would appreciate it. I do have an Instagram account if you want to check that out. I post in-progress pictures and other things that I've got going on. I also have an Etsy shop where you can pick up dungeon tiles and terrain accessories to use for your tabletop games. Both of those links can be found in the description below. But more than anything, thank you so much for stopping by. We'll see you next time.